Coming up on the Paper Talk today, we've been linked with a defender from Barcelona. Also, what's happening on the injury front, and is Erik ten Hag's job safe? Let's find out. Jay here from Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford and it's pretty mild, so you might not even need your parkers. Loads of stories to get through, but before we get into them, make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. We want to get to 750,000 subscribers by the end of the season, and with your support, yes you, we can do it. Right, let's talk about some transfers, because United have been linked with a Barcelona defender. This story doing the rounds this morning. I've seen it in the Metro, I've seen it in the Mail, I think, as well. United being linked with 25 million rated 19-year-old Mikayil Faye. This is a Senegalese defender who's at Barcelona. He's playing for Barcelona B team, and according to reports, Manchester United are interested in him, though there could be other teams as well that are looking at him. There could be a few other clubs, I think Bayer Leverkusen, amongst others, maybe even Bayern Munich as well, perhaps. I think I've read there as well, saying that they're in for him as well. So going to face competition, but it looks like there could be some interest there from Manchester United for this player. We have to sort of be careful around these stories, reports, though, because some of it comes off the back of Jay Motty going over to Spain, meeting with officials from Barcelona and I think Real Madrid as well. He did a little bit of a tour. And I don't know how much that means in terms of transfers, because at the minute, Jay Motty is almost sort of in this sort of lame duck role, if you will, because I don't think he's going to have much of a say in transfers once the likes of Omar Barada and perhaps Dan Ashworth get involved. So I don't know if he can go there and make deals now. It seems a little bit unlikely, but then you might ask, well, okay, what was he doing there? Was he involved in anything, or are these players that the club have already scouted, the club have already earmarked for potentially Dan Ashworth or anyone else to have a look at, and someone that Erik ten Hag does like? So we'll have to wait and see what happens there, but there's a couple of papers reporting on this one to keep an eye on. We haven't seen a lot of him. He's not played many games, I think, for the Barcelona first team. It's just for Barcelona B team that he's been playing. 19 years old, obviously a very talented up-and-coming young defender. Whether he ends up at Old Trafford remains to be seen, but if he does, we will keep you posted. Just on Erik ten Hag as well, there's a story in iNews, I think it was on the back pages there this morning, saying that Erik ten Hag's job is safe, that basically the Ineos aren't going to replace him, or are planning, I should say, get this right, planning for next season with him at the helm. However, they will be ready to go if that changes. So basically what they're saying is, look, what Ineos is saying is he's going to be the manager next season, and that's what we're preparing for. We're planning for all that. But if things change, if we have to make a decision, then we're going to be ready to make that decision. We're going to be ready to bring someone in sooner rather than later. So it's not like it's an emphatic Erik ten Hag, he doesn't need to worry, but it does seem that at least we can say, or at least according to these reports, we can say that Erik ten Hag's job is safe for now, and that the plan is to keep him at the helm going into next season. A lot may depend on what happens this season, of course. If Manchester United get Champions League football and win the FA Cup, I think it's going to be very, very difficult indeed to sack Erik ten Hag. I don't see how you can do that, because it'll just look really stupid to sack a manager who's got back-to-back Champions League qualifications and back-to-back trophies at Manchester United, the first manager to do that since Sir Alex Ferguson. It would also mean that you've had a very good end to the season. If those two things was to happen, you would have won a lot of football matches. There's a big if there, of course. We might not do that. We might not get past Coventry in the semi-final. If we do, we might get beat off Chelsea or City, whoever wins their semi-final. So it's not a given we're going to lift the FA Cup. Also, it's going to be quite hard to get into the Champions League spots. Even if fifth place is a Champions League spot, we're still a few points behind. I think 6 points behind the top five. So you can't just say, okay, yeah, that's going to happen. But if it does, that could keep his job safe. If it doesn't, there's still a scenario where Ineos might go, look, had a lot of injuries. You were still working under the Glazer circus, which we've admitted wasn't the best structure at the club, or best structure for a successful football team. So let's give you a chance under the new structure. Let's let you work with Dan Ashworth. Let's let you work with Omar Barada. A lot of reports are indicating that it's going to actually be Barada and Dan Ashworth who are going to decide what happens with Erik ten Hag, what happens with the managerial role, rather than Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has made a few statements, but they don't really mean a lot. I think if you're looking at him saying, oh, well, that proves Erik ten Hag's safe, or if that proves Erik ten Hag's going to go, you can interpret his statements either way you want. He's mentioned things like in the interviews he's given about the fact that you can't just blame the managers for the lack of success at Manchester United. You have to look at what's gone on, the fact that we've had so many managers. So some people have interpreted that as him saying, well, look, it's not Erik ten Hag's fault. He's going to back him. Also, he made comments about Arsenal sticking with Arteta, showing patience with him. Again, people look at that and go, well, there you go, you see. He's saying you need to be patient with the manager. The flip side to that, of course, is he didn't come out and categorically say Erik ten Hag's job is safe. He's going nowhere next season. He could have said that, and he didn't. So there you go. People saying, well, that shows he's not fully backing Erik ten Hag. It depends how you want to look at it. There's a few stories doing the rounds on who could be a replacement for Erik ten Hag if he does leave. I think there's a story in the Mirror where they've listed like the top 10 candidates, the usual suspects there. Thomas Tuchel's in there. I think Zinedine, that's not a word. Zinedine Zidane is in there. Roberto De Zerbi. There's no one in there. You go, what? Graham Potter as well. A lot of the names that have been sort of mooted over the last few months are in there. You can have a look for yourself, and you'll probably know them all anyway. I think most sort of up-and-coming decent managers, the lad at Sporting, is it Ruben Amorim? He's been mentioned as well. There's a lot of managers that are being mentioned. For me, none of them stand out as being obvious. I think you look at Zidane, he's had a lot of success. Can he come here? Would he want to come here to Manchester United and try his hand at the Premier League, try and get Manchester United to the very top? It's a difficult task. I don't know if he'd fancy it. I don't know if he's the right man for that job. I know what he did at Real Madrid was obviously very, very good, but he had a very good squad. He'd be coming here and he'd have to rebuild the squad as well. I'm not sure it could work. I mean, I don't think a lot of people would be moaning if you got Zidane through the door, but for me, I'd rather keep Erik ten Hag. Other names that have been mentioned, Gareth Southgate, I've already done a video on that. You know my feelings on it. If you don't, go and check that video out. I explain it in about 8 minutes about why Gareth Southgate is not the man for the manager's job here at Manchester United. Also, managers like De Zerbi, like Potter, a little bit unproven. Thomas Tuchel seems to annoy a lot of people, seems to create a bit of a bin fire wherever he goes recently. I know he had a lot of success. They had success at Dortmund, at PSG, won the Champions League at Chelsea as well, of course. But for me, would feel a very, very short-term option. So there's no real standout candidate for me. We've spoke about this loads of time. Go and check it out and let me know in the chat and the comments who you think Manchester United should go for, who you think would be a good manager at Manchester United, or do you want to see Erik ten Hag being given more time, which is personally what I want to see. Just on the injury front, there's a couple of reports about where Manchester United are up to with injuries. It looks like we may have Lisandro Martinez back for the Brentford game. He obviously went away with Argentina, took him doing his rehab with them. There was even mentions that maybe he could feature for them. I don't know if that's going to happen, but certainly we want to see him back in the team sooner rather than later. Also, Harry Maguire, not really sure what's happening with him. We're going to get updates on both Martinez and Maguire, I imagine, later on this week when the manager does his press conference, because Maguire obviously left the England camp early after picking up a knock in that game against Brazil. We don't know how serious that is, but we need him back in the squad sooner rather than later. Luke Shaw, doesn't look like there's any light at the end of the tunnel at the minute. Nothing to report in terms of an update, in terms of any suggestion that he's going to be fit anytime soon. But again, we need him back sooner rather than later. And that's one of the reasons why we might be looking at the lad, Mikayil Faye, who I mentioned earlier, because he can play left-back as well as centre-back. And we've had so many issues at left-back. I mentioned Tyrell Malacia yesterday. Now we're looking at Luke Shaw as well. Still no news on when he's going to come back. Chances are you're going to have to maybe play Victor Lindelof or Diogo Dalot at left-back against Brentford. Not ideal, is it? I'm going to wrap it up there. Make sure, if you're not doing already, you are hitting like, share and subscribing to the channel. Going to be back later on today. We're going to have a special video featuring Andy Tate, because can you believe it? It's been 10 years since You Are Nothing, You Are a Fool, You Are a Waste of Time. Good night. I've been Jay Motty. This has been The Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.